for the next 4 years. And I have in the house no other than Preacher Moss to comment upon this important and critical elections. I heard someone said, I was listening to CBC driving. I know as I work in the prison, I was driving out of town this week, and someone interviewed a lady from the States. She said, I'm 85 years old and I've witnessed 15 presidential elections. And this one there hasn't been an election more critical in my estimation than this one. So Preacher Moss, welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to have you back. The last time we had you here was when George Floyd was killed by the police, and you did an amazing job. You have your own show as well every week and every day. And last night you were on the American Muslim channel talking about the elections. So we are very, very pleased and honored that you could take time off your biggest schedule. But I know you're in the Caribbean time, so you take your own time.
And time, man. You know what, man? I showed up until you said 7:15.
So we would like you to come on, Preacher. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, Preacher Moss is an American comedian. He has been featured on Nightline and many other of the famous channels. And of course, you know him from Muslim Fest. Come on, brother, just say it. What do you think about the elections?
Hey, why do my West Indian brothers give the worst introductions?
I have you on social media live, Facebook Live, YouTube Live.
It's like, okay, coming up. I knew his brother back in 1984. He played music. He wasn't good though. And he owes me $20. But you know, it's okay. You know, I met him. I don't know. Did you remember where I met? See how bad that intro?
I should do better than that, but I would like you to introduce yourself and share your thoughts today with us. What does the election mean for American Muslims?
Yeah, to be honest, whether Trump or Biden wins, it looks like it's leaning towards Biden more and more. It just reminds American Muslims like, yo, you're kind of in the same place. And you really have to, you got to frame out who you are in America and stop being weak and stop being sissified and say what you want. And if somebody bugs you, you know, yeah, make dua for them. But if it's a fight, you got to be willing to fight. You know, American Muslims, I love us, but we lay down. You know, we lay down. So this guy can do what he wanted to for the last 4 years. And then if you said something, other Muslims like, shh. It's like, look, no, you can't have a whole lot of respect and expectations for people who don't like you. They don't like anything about you. They don't like your religion. They don't like your food. They don't like your accent. They don't like anything about you.
Bengal to Barbados, you can do both.
So, but I'm just saying, to make my point is like, why do we keep doing that? American Muslims, like Canadian Muslims, have a very distinct identity, a very distinct agency. And we just need to live that truth, man. Live it. If I could, I'm so Muslim, if I could, I pray Zuhr and Asr in the middle of the 401 just to tick people off. And I make them go around. It's like, you know, down here in the States, there are a lot of people who are, of course, happy. It looks like Trump is gonna lose. But at the same time, you're still dealing with the same politics. You know, the same conspirators and co-conspirators that put Muslims in a situation. I mean, you still have Muslims that voted for Trump in the midst of a Muslim ban.
Yes.
In the midst of a Muslim ban.
Did you do a show on that? Like Muslims voting for Trump in the midst of a Muslim ban?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest though. When I heard it was a Muslim ban, as a Muslim, I thought it meant I could ban other people. I called my wife up. I was like, your mama can't come back anymore. She's banned. I was like, your brother, he steals. He's banned too. But it's the same thing. And I think this time around, inshallah, in the next 4 years, Muslims really, really need to, I think all over the world, man, really, really realign and identify what they want in terms of a political platform that aligns with our religious platform, and be able to talk to governments and say, this is who we are. And if you want to rock with us, these are the things we believe. You know what? Compromise for our sensibilities, compromise for the things that we believe.
So are there any kind of a Muslim group making demands to both the Democrats and the Republicans on some of the issues that they're faced with, including Islamophobia and immigration and equal opportunities for education, etc.?
Yeah, the Nation of Islam.
And our brothers do a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, you see, nobody bothers them, right?
Yeah.
It's the youth, it's the young Muslims who are, they're not afraid, they're courageous, they're creative, they're innovative, they're tech savvy. So they speak that language. That commerce, or that transaction language in the United States, and we've got to, us older Muslims, if we don't have it going on, we got to get out of the way. So I'm gonna say that to some of us older Muslims, recognize the talent. If you there's certain things we can't do. We don't understand some aspects of tech. We can advise to a point, but some of it is technology. Rising up a generation of kids that are technologically proficient, which means that gives them access in terms of jobs, job creation, being able to be entrepreneurs, things like that. Dealing with some of those things. I'm not a tech guy. I don't mind getting out of the way. I don't mind supporting them. Look, I can't work on a computer, but I'll buy you a computer. Fair enough. So if
But you do have some technical knockouts when it comes to comedy. Can you do an invitation for us with a Trump invitation and a Biden invitation?
I have a video I could show you. I think I sent it to you. Did I send it to you?
Yeah, but I want you to do like a small snippet for us.
I like to do an imitation of Donald Trump telling the truth. Okay, I can't do it. And Joe Biden, I don't know, man. It's just really old white men, brother. That's the way it was. It's like two really old white men. Like, I was worried that somebody would bust in a room and tell them that they won too quickly, and they just keel over. They pull a Fred Sanford. Like their hearts can't take a victory. It's like, tell Biden he lost because his heart can't take the victory.
Yeah, I heard you said how winning is easy, but accepting defeat is hard. What's your remedy for that? Accepting defeat is hard.
Hey man, if you play the game hard, defeat is a learning opportunity, bro. Failure is a pathway to understanding how you get better. That's the problem with politicians. They think failure is like, that's the end of my career. And honestly, we don't teach failure. Like, we teach success. It has to be. We don't teach failure. We don't teach the nuances of failure in terms of what can you glean from the situation. I learned, hey, if you're gonna fail fast, fail fast and fail often, brother. And that's been a thing. But we don't teach kids that. So kids have this high anxiety of, oh my gosh, if I fail, to the point where they're so afraid of failing, they're almost amoral, man, that they don't try. You know how it was when we were kids, man. We tried everything. Didn't matter if you failed. We tried everything.
Yes, failure was part of the game. As a matter of fact, you remind me of Muhammad Ali's statement when he said, whenever he is punched out, he prefers to land on his back so he could face his opponent and ready to get up again.
Yeah, man. I mean, literally, what's going to happen down here in the States, I believe, is just going to be a bit of a recalibration, because you don't have that dominant, like way over the top dominant personality. And people have to get back to facts. People have to get back to policies. People have to get back to communication. Just imagine, man, you don't have to worry about 3 or 4 lies being told a day by by the leader of your country. I mean, a day, brother. It's like I had a friend, man, and I guess we're still friends. When we were kids,
You're not sure?
I'm not sure, brother. I'm rethinking it as we talk. You know, he was a good guy. He was smaller than me, but he liked to pick fights, thinking that all of us were gonna fight on his behalf. You know what I mean? You're having a good time. They're like, "There's your friend again." You know, he's standing up there talking to some guy the size of a skyscraper, and he's like, "I got my boys with me," and I'm like, I'm looking at the skyscraper. I'm not his boy. And that was Trump, man. Trump picked fights. He knew he couldn't fight, but he had the GOP, and he bullied the GOP, man.
So I remember in the last election, Linda Sarsour and many other Muslim women joined the Women's March. Do you see something like that happening again in America?
No, not anytime soon. Because the game changes. Linda is not doing that march anymore. She's not a part of that organization anymore. And a lot of it has to do with climate. So she did a lot of protesting, good work on behalf of Breonna Taylor, who was murdered in Louisville, but she got a lot of flack for being a part of that original group of women. And a lot of it came from Trump supporters. And then it's not like, hey, we don't like you. It's people threatening that woman. And that was, that was it. Like people, she had the hijab, she was loud, she was vocal, she was very active. And people didn't like that. And so a lot of the Trump supporters, if you will, they took exception to that. Trump allowed the ugly part of America to really just go out and have date night. So the ugly of America got to have date night for the last 4 years, and to the end of the election, you have people trying to run tour buses off the road. You have Trump supporters trying to act like they were the police in Detroit right now, right across the border from you. You have thousands of Trump supporters trying to get into the spot where they're counting the votes for the state of Michigan. They're already in there anyway, but you have more people trying to get. I'm like, they don't want to lose, brother. They don't want to lose. So when you start looking at it like that, it's like, that it's interesting, man. Once you cut the head off, we're gonna see what the rest of the body does.
Right. Well,
and I want to throw in that you should start a GoFundMe for Donald Trump's commissary when he gets sent to prison.
Well, I know you could try Launch Good instead. You might have lots of supporters. But I want to thank you for coming on, Preacher Moss. If you have the time and stay on with us, there was an interesting story from Sabir Nakhuda from Barbados. And you and me have talked before about getting to perform in Barbados. And we have the right man who is listening here tonight with us. That is Suleiman Bulbulia. He is the shaker and maker in Barbados community. And Suleiman Bulbulia, and I will connect both of you after this webinar. Yes. Suleiman, I want you to say hello to Preacher Moss.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, Barbados?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Allah's God, keep it simple, brother. Thank you for asking.
MashaAllah. It's good to see you. I've seen your video. Allah made me funny, man. Alhamdulillah.
I'm funnier than that video, brother.
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Funnier than that video. I won't be doing the same jokes. That's all I want you to know.
We want to welcome you to Barbados, inshallah.
And he's from the Caribbean. You're from Nevis, right?
Are you?
Barbados. Yeah, not Barbados, the Bahamas.
Bahamas. He's from the Bahamas. So, Suleiman, I will connect you with Preacher Moss for sure.
Inshallah. Jazakallah, brother Habeeb.
All right, beloved. Have a great show, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you, man. One love. Sabir Nakhuda is our headliner tonight. We thank Preacher Moss for joining us. Sabir, we would like to go to you, and if you could share with us, what was your childhood like growing up in Gujarat, India?
Yeah, well, excuse me. As you know, I came to Barbados when I was about 10 years old. So I spent 9, 10 years in India, in Gujarat, in the village of Tatkeshwar. Um, we are talking about 1947 when I was born. And so at that time, there was no electricity in the villages in Gujarat. So we would have the kerosene lamps. Uh, my family had lots of farmland, so they would plant, rice and cotton and cane and peanuts, and you would have lots of buffaloes and cows, and so I was uh, in living in as a farmer's grandson, because my dad had already left um, for England in 1950. And so I grew up with my granddad and my grandmother, the extended family, and my mom, and so on. And it was, for me, it's a beautiful life. I sometimes still reminiscent those 10 years that I spent in India as a little kid, taking the horse to go and drink the water at the pond or the village pond, and so on. Going to madrasa barefoot, and there's so many different things that you would do as a child. Of course, when 6 o'clock you are inside the house because there's no light. We used to have someone coming around. You had like a street poles, kerosene lamps. So they would come in the evening and light that lamp. But then the best time was when it was moonlight. You would play so many games, during the moonlight time. One of the things was that I was my granddad's favorite grandson, because there was only myself and my brother who recently passed away, Iqbal. Um, and so he was
Soul.
so he was my grandmother's favorite, and I was my granddad's favorite. There were benefit of being a granddad's favorite, but there was also disadvantage, because every night while all the kids at the street uh, playing Huttutu and so many different things, Indian games. I had to be, sitting next to my granddad and massaging his feet and so on, because he want his grandson to do that, nobody else. And so you can imagine all the negative thoughts that would have come to my mind while they were playing and I was massaging. But, Allah will bless me, inshallah. But the other nice thing was that, of course, as you know, farmers, they would take their bulk cart and they would take all of their produce, rice and so on, and they would have a mela, if you call it a fair, and then they would go there to sell their produce, wholesale basis. So we would leave home maybe 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning and get there by Fajr time. And on the way, one of the things that I learned, and even up to now, I maintain that, was the genealogy aspect of it, to learn more about the family history. So that my granddad would tell me all about his father, he would tell me all about his grandfather. And so things that I learned from my granddad, no other sibling would have learned that. And that is one of the reasons, and that was what inculcated that interest within me, to learn more, to get to know my family. So alhamdulillah, I have gone to every part of the world to make sure that I know each and every family members that is alive. And maybe that is because of that interesting stories my granddad would tell me.
So you were saying that your granddad actually planted a seed of your quest to write this book, Bengal to Barbados, without even knowing it. Because just like you have gone around the world to seek out your family members, so too you have traveled to India to seek out the authentic stories of those who migrated initially from Bengal to Barbados.
Yes.
Beautiful. What was your migration like from India to Barbados?
Well, I was one of those fortunate one that arrived on BOAC at that time. You
Wow.
know, so and then I stayed
British
in England. Oh yeah,
Airways.
British Overseas Airways Corporation, I think at that time.
Yes,
And I
BOAC.
remember distinctly my dad probably would have told my granddad, oh, don't forget to let him have a jacket and a hat, a cocked hat. So I don't know if there was an English thing that he wanted me to, wear this jacket and a hat, So then I stayed, I think, in England for maybe 2-3 weeks. And then I came to Barbados. Initially, my dad had come to England from India, and he stayed in England for 2 or 3 years, I think. And after that, one of his roommate, who had a family in Barbados, uh, had written him and said, hey, why don't you come to Barbados? So the roommate decided, yes, I'm gonna go. And he told my dad, hey, why don't you, would you like to come? He said, of course, sure. So then my dad decided, okay, let's go to Barbados. And honestly, alhamdulillah, thank God that he decided to come to Barbados and not stayed in England. Right in the Bengal to Barbados too, I used to work with the advocate, and I would go in the library and I would read about the East Indians of Barbados, but there were not much written about the East Indians in Barbados at that time. There would have been an interview with like Mr. Degia and a few others who would have come in the 1950s, but nothing concrete, nothing of essence or substance. And I thought that it cannot stop there. I'm a very inquisitive person. I love to read, and as I said, I want to know more. And history has been one of my pet subjects all the time. And then I decided that let me check and see if there would have been East Indian who would have come earlier, because I had read that you had indentureship in Guyana and Trinidad and Suriname and so on. So that these Indians could not just have come in 1940s and 50s. And I started then to have a tape recorder and a notebook. I went all over the countryside, talking to the old ladies and so on about the coolie man, itinerant trader. And they would give me all some fantastic stories, to start off with. And then I met one or two of the Bengali family in Barbados. And I started my journey of doing the research. Those were the preliminary research.
Could you share with
And then
us
I
a
started
story?
my journey by.
Could you share with us a story from
Yeah,
those
well,
older ladies in Barbados?
The ladies?
Could you share with us some of the stories that the older ladies would have shared with you in Barbados about
Oh,
the ancestors that came from India?
right. But they, the East Indians in Barbados, or what you would call the itinerant traders, had set a very good platform. In other words, when the first East Indian who came to Barbados in 1910, he came from West Bengal and in Hooghly district. And when he came, at that time, Black Barbadians were working in the cane field or the plantations and so on. And they were, they were not rich, they were poor people. And so what he did, he started a niche market by going to the merchants in Swan Street. He didn't know any English, and I don't know how he did it. He would get credit from them and then go around the countryside and sell his goods on a credit basis and so on. And so he created that niche market. He went and gave it to them rather than those Black Barbadians coming to Bridgetown to purchase the basic necessities that they would need to purchase, like cutlass and khaki pants and a hat and whatever, but they would have to pay on a cash basis. But these itinerant trader decided that he would give it on a credit basis and would go back every week and collect maybe 25 cents and so on. So that set the stage for a relationship, and a long-lasting relationship over 110 years as we speak now, building trust, because that's what they used to say. I can trust from this person. There was always a matter of trust, you know, not like courts and other places where you sign 10 pages of agreements and so on. And so they would talk highly about that. And as you know, the East Indians who first came, they were Muslims. And because they were just getting 25 cents and 50 cents, and they couldn't afford to bring their wives here. So they married to Barbadian women who were Christians, and they treated them like their wives. You know, the Christian wife remained Christian. Their children also went to church and so on, and the Muslim Indian remained as a Muslim. And so there was that building. You know, both of them were poor, so there was more like, you know, they were partners in poverty in a sense. They were buffer between the rich commercial whites and the poor Black Barbadians. So they built this relationship, not only basis of commercial relationship, but on the basis of knowing each other, becoming partners with each other. So there's so many stories like that, oh, sometimes they would tell me about, you know, my granddaughter was sick or my daughter was sick, and this my coolie man, because that's what he would say. Oh, he came to collect money, and you know, I didn't have any money, and I told him that my daughter is sick, so I can't pay him. So he said, okay, no problem. What happened? He said, well, I don't have money to take her to the doctor. And he would then go and get a doctor, bring him to their homes, and he will let the doctor would, you know, examine the person. He would pay for the doctor's fee. He would pay for the medicine, and then he would put it on what you call a card. So these are the kind of services that they would provide. It had to do with, yes, commercial, but at the same time, that is what we call humanity, love for humanity.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, because that's what we're talking about here today. Your story, a mercy to humanity, and the story that you share with us. It's like the initiation of a caseworker. So as a business person, you're also taking care of your clients by providing them a doctor and providing them credit for the payment of the doctor. I know you were once a writer for the Advocate in Barbados, and you would also defend the Muslim cause. In those days, I was very happy in those days, many years ago, to read your articles. Did you get your education here in Canada as a writer?
I did some courses at George Brown College. Yes, I did mass communication and so on in Toronto. But by the way, though, I do not wish to take all the responsibility of writing at the Barbados Advocate. We had a column called The Muslim View. And Suleiman also played a very important role in writing the Muslim View. You know, and of course it helped because I was working there. We had got half page free because the people, the higher up people at the Advocate were very kind to us. The editor has been very, very kind to us. But I would share the kudos with Suleiman. I think he also played a tremendous role in promoting, educating, and enlightening Barbadians at that point in time, because Barbadians were not aware of what Islam is, because every Indian was an Indian, whether you are Muslim or a Hindu or Christian Indian. And I think that in some way, up to today, I think we have played some role in changing that perception, that now I think Barbadians can distinguish between an Indian who is a Hindu and an Indian who is a Muslim. And I think a lot of praise must also go to Suleiman for that effort too.
Yes, and I'm glad that Suleiman is here on the Zoom so we can congratulate him. I was very fortunate to know Suleiman as a friend from Guyana, and we have worked together, including one Suleiman arranged at the University of West Indies for me to speak on Islam and Islamic history and Black history. So, but coming back to yourself, there is a idea that people are not able to differentiate between the indentured laborers that came from India and the migrant business people that came from India to Barbados. The indentured laborers ended up in places like Suriname and Trinidad and Guyana in 1838, the beginning of migration of Indians from India. And the migrant business Indian came from India in 1910 to Barbados. What is that differentiation, and how do you see that current today? Is there some kind of impact that's happening currently to the Indian population in Barbados, given that no, you have Indians from Trinidad, you have Indians from from Guyana, you have Indians from Suriname, you have new Indians that have come from India, and do you see some impact currently, and what's the difference between the two prior to that?
As you know, the indentureship began in 1838 after the end of slavery in 1834, first to Guyana and then to Trinidad in 1845, and so on and so forth. But they came for a particular job. The East Indians who came to Barbados, among them would have been the Bashat Ali Diwan, the first person who happened to be Muslim. They did not come, or he did not come, or he did not set out from Hooghly district to come to Barbados. He went to Trinidad and then decided that he is coming to Barbados, and then found this fish market. So we can say that he came accidentally. After that would have been Gujarati. Among them would have been Suleiman's family, who would have been the first one who would have come, and then we would have Sindhis. All three groups would have come accidentally to Barbados. And up to today, after 110 years, apart from, of course, changes because our children and grandchildren are born here and they grew up here, and there's a different culture and so on. But still, if you see the East Indians in Trinidad compare with the East Indians in Barbados, whether Muslims or Sindhis, I think our whole attitude, our well-being is so different. We still continue to follow a lot of our Indian culture. The big difference is that in Guyana, and unlike Guyana and Trinidad and so on, many of the progenies of the early East Indians, Muslims and Hindus, do not know where they come from. Fortunately, in Barbados, I can say that if not all, most of the East Indians, both Sindhis and Muslims and the South Indians, we know exactly where our foreparents come from. So for example, all the Gujarati Muslims in Barbados know exactly which village, whether it's Kaflita, Lajpur, Dabil, etc., etc. So that is the big difference. And I think many of us still, and even in my own household, we still speak Gujarati. We still have that Indian culture that is embedded within us, maybe sometimes to the expense of the Islamic culture, because we tend to do not distinguish between the Islamic culture and Indian culture at times. And so sometimes you have this confusion too, misunderstanding too. But in Trinidad, the case is different. Even when we have our khutbah is recited mainly in Arabic, and you would see maybe a little bayan or talk 15 minutes prior to the khutbah and so on. Our food and so on, yes, of course, we have mixed with the Western food, the Barbadian flying fish and cuckoo, and we drink soup, and we have macaroni pie and fried chicken, but we still eat our dal and rice and our khichdi and curry and our biryani, and of course, most important, our samosas. So these are some of the differences. And I think even when you're talking about courtship and getting married and so on, I think the whole concept is still more Indianish in that sense. Of course, it is changing. Young boys and girls are meeting each other over different things, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, and so on, and they are getting married. So before, you would have Indian boy or girl, Muslim boy or girl would be, getting married to one of girl from India but now I think that more and more Barbadian Muslims, I think Barbadians, Indies, they are also getting married to the Barbadians Barbadian Muslims, Hindus, Sindhis, whatever, but they also marry into Barbadians, Barbadian boys and Barbadian girls too. So it is changing slowly, but we are still maintaining a lot of our Indian culture in Barbados.
Well, I remember that the differentiation that you have highlighted, the indentured laborers from India were under the influence of the British colonial um, powers in those days after slavery, whereas the Bengali Muslims that arrived first in Barbados, and that's funny enough, it wasn't the Gujarati, although nowadays the Gujarati is the majority of the Muslim and the Sindhi population. They came because they were looking for better opportunities and they travel as business people. And you have shared a story. I remember I was by your home in Barbados when you had just returned from your trip from Bengal, and you had your notes and you had your stories and you were so excited. And there was a story that you had shared, and then maybe if you could share that with us, like what was it like when you actually arrived in West Bengal and to meet with these people? You had your notes, you had your research, you had arranged the trip. You're all excited, anticipating that you're going to meet this person first that you have just only known from the figment of your memory and the oral stories that were shared with you. But here you're going to be meeting relatives and family, real life for the first time. What was it like, and what was the journey like on that day where you went out there to meet these individuals?
Yeah, well, after doing my research, going to the hills and fields of Barbados, speaking to the Black Barbadians or ladies about what type of East Indians they were, what kind of people they were, and so on, I decided now to set up on my long journey. And I wanted to take my wife with me too, because, we come from Gujarat. So the thought is that, okay, I'm going to leave her in Gujarat, in Tatkeshwar, and then I would set off. But
By the way, I
decided,
studied in Satkeshwar.
I know, Farah Darun. Yes, Falah Darun, that's right. Maybe I will send you a picture of the old Falah Darun that I studied too. A very good friend of mine in Tatkeshwar, he come from Bengal. He's a West Bengali, he's Kari Mufid. He made the arrangements for me. I told him, oh, by the way, then I needed to know where these Bengalis come from, because I am from Gujarat, so I know Gujarat very well. And Alhamdulillah, I still speak Gujarati, Hindi, and Urdu, Alhamdulillah. But I needed to go to West Bengal. And one of the family of the early West Bengalis in Barbados gave me an airmail letter. And airmail was, you fold it up. And so that was one of the letter written in Bengali and had an address, a Bengali address at the back of the letter. Marjinpur, Hooghly district, West Bengal, pin code, so
Wow.
and so. So I started my journey with an airmail letter to go and find the first East Indian who arrived in Barbados. So here I go. It took me about 2 weeks to get to that village of Jeanpur. Honestly, when I was walking through this narrow street, I just wanted to know, it took me so long. It took me a day to get to that village, to be honest with you. We left early in the morning and I got to that village, maybe around 4 o'clock or so. And I'm asking myself, how it took me so long, and took so long for my friend to find this village. How did Mashat Ali Divan got to Trinidad and Barbados? Forget about getting to Calcutta itself, and that was amazing me. And the streets in narrow streets, muddy streets, and muddy homes, and so on, up and down, and then when I got there, of course, there's one or two of them would speak Urdu, and Alhamdulillah, that helped a lot. So I met then the Bashat Ali's son, the first East Indian Muslims who came to Barbados, and I met all of his families. The whole environment, the structure, the house, the village structure, is so different from the one in Gujarat. Different, completely different. So for me, it was a new discovery, a new challenge, a new adventure. The food is different because as you get there, they're giving you lots of rasgulla to eat, sweet,
Yes.
sweet. And my wife say, you know, don't
And
eat
rice.
too much of this. And I say, but you know, I have to eat because I don't want to offend the people. And then, you know, I pay the consequence at night for eating so much of those. And so what we would do, we would go from one village to another. So when you, and all of my work, the Bengal to Barbados, is an oral history because nothing was written about East Indians of Barbados prior to this. And as I told you earlier, it was just something in 40s and 50s, few articles here and there. And so we would go, we would leave this particular village and then head for, and then they would tell us, oh, you know, there is somebody else in Ishna village that I think that went to Barbados. So, you know, I'm going there, although I don't know where Ishna village is, or I don't know who that person in Ishna village is, but I am going. And I took my wife with me too, because she want, you know, and sometimes, so when we are going and it's getting dark, my driver would be like, you know, driving like, you know, like he's a madman, something, just driving, you know, fast. And I am telling him, you know, ahista, ahista chalaye, you know, please drive slowly and slowly. Say, well, you know, humko to wo wahan jana hai. So I would say, well, you know, just take it easy. He said, no, no, we have to, you know. So when you talk to your driver who does not listen, 2 or 3 times. So then I was just keeping quiet. And of course, my wife was in the back seat and I was in the front. After a while, she realized that I was not saying anything at all, you know. So she said, what happened? I'm not hearing you talking. I say, I'm praying. She said, how do you mean you're praying? I say, well, I'm praying to see if I can get to this village or not. Furthermore, get into Barbados.
Oh
And
my.
I was trying my best to pray. There were some prayers that I had forgotten, Brother Habeeb, and I remember those prayers at that point in time. Not only was he driving reckless and fast, sometimes he even, because of the traffic, he would take the other side. In other words, he would be driving on the oncoming traffic, you know.
Man, that's like a movie.
And so what happened, when a good thing came out of it, I remember all of my duas that I had forgotten earlier. So that it was a good experience. I mean, and it's an experience that I would never, ever swap with anything else. It was challenge, it was adventure, because I had one focus, and that zeal and that focus was that I want to know who would have been the first East Indian who would have come to Barbados. And at the end of it, I wanted to leave something for not only Barbadian Muslims and Indians, but for the whole of the Caribbean,
Yes,
something.
and I'm proud of you. And Bashar Muhammad and many others made quite a sacrifice to travel across the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean and the ships. But for you to have gone back and make the opposite journey and experience some of the difficulties and actually ended up having to do extra prayers, that's to show that there was fear as well, and there was sacrifice, and there was lots of giving from your part and from your wife's part in that journey. So congratulations to that. That's why we were happy to host you a few years ago in Canada to launch the Bengal to Barbados book. But more importantly, the Barbados government was able to add your book to the time capsule last year. So tell us about that, like the impact of Bengal to Barbados in Barbados itself, in the public sphere, in literature, in the university, in the community, in the media. Like, what did you see impact? What were some of the impacts?
Well, now I think that they say that I am supposed to be the expert about the East Indians in Barbados, and I have my manager Suleiman, so he would be the one after me. So when I am not around, Suleiman will be the one who would take care of that. The impact is that yes, Sabir Nakhuda is the one who can tell you all about the East Indian, not only about East India, where they came from, but the culture, the way of life, and so on and so forth. So when I wanted to publish my book, we had asked the Prime Minister of Barbados if he would be kind enough to do the foreword. And he was very, very kind. And he said some nice and kind words because he knew that these East Indians in Barbados were playing a tremendous role in helping the poor Black Barbadians achieve basic commodities that they otherwise could not have because they didn't have the money to do so. And so when I asked him, he was kind enough to do so. And then when we launched the book, Alhamdulillah, again, all the mass media, electronic and print media, and everybody was there. And so that book was received, tremendously. I think we sold maybe about 300 copies or something, or even more than that within 2 weeks. And every Indian household, Muslim household, had that copy. So you'll find that book available everywhere. Alhamdulillah. I just went back to Bengal because I wish to do a documentary now, because I want to finish this whole episode of Bengal to Barbados. I went back to the villages in Gujarat and villages in Bengal. By the way, in my first book, I also went to Pakistan, Hyderabad, Sindh, and Karachi to find out more about the Sindhis who would have come from around that area. Because at that time, as you know, all of that was it was under India.
Yeah.
This time when I went, I found that there were some Barbadian children from mixed marriage from Bengali went back to India at the age of 5 and 6 and never came back. So those are some of the stories that I am sure my documentary will fascinate you.
Oh, that is so fascinating. So, but Bajans in Bengal. So it's not only one way; it's both ways. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, this has been a fascinating journey, a fascinating interview with Sabir Nakhuda from Barbados, the beautiful island where the flying fish fly straight into your plate from the sea. And this has been such a journey from Gujarat, migrated to England. He came to Barbados. I want to say again, namaste, shalom, shanti, and assalamu alaikum, wherever you're joining us, tuning, and I will leave some time for you to ask questions. But coming back to Sabir Nakhuda, you may have had some hurdles and challenges in your life. I mean, you're a successful businessman. You're now an acclaimed author. You have also traveled the world. You have done your bit, both humanitarian work as well as your Islamic work. As a matter of fact, I know your brother Iqbal. I was very fortunate that when I launched my book in Barbados a few years ago, yourself and Iqbal, we had a beautiful
Yes.
conversation at the restaurant, for a better word. Um, and but it was such a beautiful experience. So it's rare, therefore, when you find someone that is holistic, someone that is wholesome. You can enjoy Indian culture. You can enjoy Bajan culture. You can hang out with Mia Motley, who has made waves in Guyana. And you can, and then you have some exotic birds there that you're taking care of, those peacocks.
Peacocks.
So coming back to your life, what were some of your hurdles and challenges, and how you overcome them?
Uh, you know, Asta'inu bis sabri was salah.
Right.
Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. That does not mean that it was always that I was following the principle laid out in the Quran. Depending on your age and when did you have those hurdles and challenges. The older you get, you then adhere to those verses. But when you are younger, you are, these dynamic things, and you want to conquer the whole world at the same time, and you make so many stupid mistakes that you wish you didn't make, but you made it because you were young and you wanted to achieve some stuff and so on. I think a lot of time that we tend not to have patience. Lots of time we want the things to be done right away. And I think that is part of our mistakes in our life, but maybe that is natural or normal when you are young and so on. Of course, in business, yeah, you make mistakes. Sometimes you call the wrong shot and you lose. But then you also, as long as you know that you and have that mindset that yes, okay, so I fell on the ground, I would just shake off the dust from my shirt or pants and so on and start all over again. And that has happened to me so many times. you know, and business-wise and so on. And also that happens to you too in your social life, in your domestic life sometimes. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we are not the ones who make all the mistakes. Maybe our partners tend to make mistakes, or sometimes both of us, you know. And so I went through those things too, you know. I went to school, I came back from Toronto, fell in love, get married. And of course, it is so beautiful to fall in love too. It is better to love and
What
lose.
was the name of the song that you sang?
It
What
is
is the
better
name of
to.
the song that you sang? Was it a Muhammad Rafi song?
No, I had one. So saal pehle mujhe tumse pyar tha. 100 years ago, I love you, and I love
Lovely,
you
lovely,
today, and
lovely.
I shall continue to love you tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. But you know, these are part of life, and what happens is make you a better individual, as long as you learn from your error and your mistakes. And if you don't make that, hopefully you don't make that mistake, you make another mistake, but you will continue to make mistakes.
Oh, I see there is someone in the chat here. Her name is Beverly, and she says she is the granddaughter of Basharat Ali. Welcome, Beverly. Could you, Beverly, could you chime in and ask Mr. Sabir a question or two about his journey in finding Basharat Ali's family in Bengal?
Hi, I'm Beverly from
Hi,
Barbados.
hi,
Uh,
hi, Beverly.
Hi, I don't really have a question for you. I was just interested in what everybody was saying. I wanted to know more about his merchandise shop here in Barbados, how it went, and how did he disappear with everything that he had on the shelf and went back to India and left everybody stranded. Do you know that story?
Yes, yes, I do very well.
Okay, let me hear
Okay,
how that went.
okay, all right. Well, you know, Bashar Ali was the first one who came, and he started and he worked very hard, and he
Yeah,
married to
Pauline Taylor.
Pauline Taylor and
Pauline,
had two daughters, you know, Begum and
my
another girl.
grandmother, yes.
But then he had other children too. In
Yes.
Barbados, in Barbadian terminology, whether I would be, I would venture to say, you know, we call person who have a lots of women village rams, that type of stuff, but he would not be
Yes.
that kind of village ram, like, but he
Uh,
liked lots of women. And so he not only married her, there was others that he married to and had other children apart from those two that we know. Um, of course, he became a well-established businessman.
yeah.
Yes, but we must also say that he has been very kind and gentle and generous because he started to call his families from Bengal to
Okay.
Barbados, and then he started to call his neighbors and people from other villages and so on. And he had businesses in Spice Town, he had businesses in Swan Street.
Yeah.
But I think that he was, you know, he chew more than he can. And then what happened is that in 1937, and it just
And the
happened
right.
to be the day, and it just happened to be the day of the riot. He
Yeah.
decided that I had enough of this thing, you know, I can't pay my debt. He just left everything and he then boarded a ship on the day of 1937 riot. By the way, though, you know, he used to have a man that would go walk up and down the Swan Street and say, Bashar Ali selling whatever it is for 10 cents, come. Someone with big, big, heavy voice and so on. So he was
Yeah.
very, very popular. He was very popular throughout Barbados. But, you know, I suppose he couldn't manage his business. I don't know whether he spent a lot of money on other women that he have had. I don't know. But he left in 1937. He had before that he had gone to India once. He built a house and then he went back in 1937. And I think he
Okay.
finished building the house. I have the pictures. I just went back there again last year in February. I am going to do a documentary. One of his son who became a lawyer in India. He passed away. The other son is still there and have all of his families. Everybody live in the same big, massive compound, Bashar Ali compound house that
Uh,
he built. So that is what happened. He left in 1937 never to return again.
Okay, I see. So my mom tells me that he just closed up the shop, and then somebody went in and they opened the shoe boxes. Not a shoe was in any of the boxes. They were all empty. He took everything with him. Is that true?
No, I think that he was in a hurry to leave. So
Oh,
unless the workers, took all the shoes and whatever the case may
okay,
be.
okay,
But he was going bankrupt even before that too. So
I see.
when
All
you come
right.
into an end of your bankruptcy, you probably would have the empty shoe box, but not the shoes.
Yeah, yes. Okay,
Beautiful. Thank you, Beverly.
all right. Thank you for that information. Greatly appreciated.
We,
I
You're
we,
have your
welcome.
book. I have your book here, and I've read it. Yes, quite
Thank you.
interesting. Yeah.
Thank you.
and
Okay.
yes, thank you, Beverly. Coming back to Sabir, um, we were talking about your you spoke beautifully about your overcoming your hurdles, and you think that the patience is the value that you now carry with you. But there may have been some heroes and influencers and even teachers, family, someone or so many others in the Caribbean, in India, that may have influenced you to be where you are today. And like Beverly, there are many others who have sought your expertise, your knowledge. They want to have that connection. They want to know what their grandfather was like, what their grandmother was like, what this relative was like. So tell us, who are those heroes and influencers?
Yep. As you know, my name is Sabir. So that is the patient one.
Right.
So maybe my family probably knew to name me that name anyway. I think that I could start with my grandfather because he put that impetus in me to want to know, more, to want to know about things. And then my dad, although up to I was 10 years old, he was not around because he had to come overseas, uh, to make a better living for us. And I'm grateful, and may Allah, reward him uh, uh, for that and for all of our families and so on. But he was the one, he was one of those East Indian dad, unlike the others that I know around his age and so on too. He was very cool, and he was one who was very um, open. In other words, that we can talk to him as if he was our friend. He would ask us, and I would argue with him many, many times. And then my brother Iqbal would say, yeah, okay, Sabir bhai, cool it, and you could not do that with other children could not do that with their parents. My dad would be the one who would encourage us, to seek knowledge, to learn more. And my dad always would be seeking knowledge himself. I remember he had a German radio called Blow Pong, I think that was the name, I can still remember. And 10 o'clock in the night, he's letting the whole neighbor know the news that is coming from BBC or whatever. At that time, we're talking about in 1960s and early 1970s, loud in back call, the neighbors know what's happening, whether America is going to invade Cuba because Khrushchev sent his missiles to Cuba and so on. So I was very, very fortunate to have a dad like him. Even when my dad went into Tabligh Jamaat movement and so on, and many of them are very strict and so on. Not my dad. He was very open. He always giving you room, and give you room to grow, to learn. And I thought that was the way, and that was what I think, not myself, but my brothers and all of my siblings. And I think that he gave us that confidence, to do best we can. And the other thing that he taught us is that each and every one of us are human, and that we need to be kind to our neighbors, kind to our to any individual. Always give. Whenever you have given, Allah will give it to you, and that stuck with me up to now. We have our neighbors, all the kids would just come, Black Barbadians, go through my house, eat whatever, and we will go through their homes too. and drink from that. Remember that tin, I don't know, enamel tin, we will go by them and drink tea, and they would come by us. So he created that building of bridges. And so maybe today that is one of the reasons why I have set out, not only with the book Bengal to Barbados or Muslims of CARICOM, but the third book to build bridges between people, between people of different color, different race, different religion, and so on. Because at the end of it, I think that we are our brother's keepers.
But beautiful, Sabir, and your dad has been your influence. Do you, the fact is that you are so passionate about interfaith. You've come from an interfaith. Bashar Ali and others demonstrated that that was the foundation of their community establishment in Barbados, based upon interfaith. Yet, still from time to time, you have faced resistance with interfaith work, interfaith dialogue, and in Barbados, you've done quite a bit, and Suleiman and Maulana Ahmed and others have done quite a bit in bringing communities together, whether it's Eid or interfaith dialogue or fighting for issues, social justice issue, being with the prime minister, being with the pastors, being with whatever it is. I mean, why doesn't that same impetus and that same teaching and that same foundation did not follow through with the rest of the Barbadian Muslims, seemingly?
Because they live in a cocoon, I suppose. They have their own different agenda and so on, and their purpose, or maqsad you call it, purpose, is not the same as ours. Our purpose, Suleiman, myself, and Maulana Ahmad to a lesser extent, is to build bridges. Their purpose may be to make sure that they, survive, make sure that they, do things for their family, take care of their family, and so on. Nothing is wrong with that. Or maybe because they do not have self-confidence, that they are afraid that they do not have that command of the language, or they are afraid that they do not know about human relationship, and they don't. Most of them are not brought up. We Suleiman and myself, everything that we do, we learn ourselves. We didn't go to any Carnegie courses, or we learn every day by trials and error, and so maybe because this is our need, our desire to do so, they probably do not have that same desire, that affection that we would have to do what we are doing. They are probably more busy building life for themselves, life for their families, and nothing is wrong with that. Of course, one thing I must say about them too is that they encourage us. I remember at the beginning when we started with Muslim View, and I started to defend Islam and did a lot of rebuttal, because I do comparative religion and so on. They would have said, "Oh, tell Suleiman and I, oh no, we come here, to make a life. Don't want the Barbadians to kick us out, because they remember the situation in Burma a long time ago, and so they're afraid that, oh, if we irritate Barbadians, they might just kick us out and send us back to India and so on." But those were the thought that they had at that time. But then later on, and we would not say anything. And later on, when they saw what we were doing, they would then, if someone write anything, they would then call us, "Oh, Sabir Bhai, Suleiman Bhai, aren't you going to respond to this person?" So here they were giving us this indirect encouragement, into doing this thing. And so even when we speak, and sometimes I am not the one who probably representing the Barbados Muslim Association, and in certain situation, and the speaker would, or the moderator would say that, you know what I mean? They wouldn't call me and say, "Hey, but you are not a member of the committee member." No, because they know that what we are doing is to make sure that we give benefit, we do things that will be beneficial to the whole community of Barbadian. And so indirectly, yes, that they have been supporting us too, but it is just unfortunate, and it's very, very unfortunate, that we do not have anyone that can replace us at this point in time. But Allah knows best, and He always, will get work out of others after we pass.
Beautiful. Your work is not your work is definitely vital and um, I could say crucial, given the many years and many accolades and many important issues that yourself and Suleiman have touched upon. And it's great that you have always included Suleiman in this important interfaith work that has happened in Barbados. But I have two more questions for you, and is that we have spoken about the Indians of Barbados in the past, but what about the current? They are Barbadians that have made world stage news all over the world. We're talking about Rihanna. What about the Indians of Barbados? What kind of impact they've had on the world stage? Both the Sindhis
Well,
and Muslims.
yeah, for us, home drum beat first, so we are more concerned with how we are being perceived by the Barbadian community, and Alhamdulillah, it is been positive. But we have had some that made a great impact. We have had Dawood Pandor, who is the son of Abdul Hai Pandor. Abdul Hai Pandor, just like me too, came from India when he was about 6 or 7 years, from a village of Kaflata, where the first East Indian Muslims came. And then he had his MSc in civil and structural engineering. And then in 1997, he went to work with Buro Hoboki Association. They were the consulting firm engineer. And then they had also then had him hired him to work on the Millennium Dome project. Remember, that was erected and the design team to work on that superstructure of the dome. Remember that was £50 million project. The price tag, that Millennium Dome in Southeast London,
Yes.
the largest dome and so on. And it opened to the public in January 1st, 2000. And so he was one of the engineer that was working on that project alone. So I think that is kudos for us. We are very proud of him. And then he went to Saudi Arabia also to work on the Al Fazal Tower, a 230-meter high structure, as a resident structural engineer. And so East Indian, both Muslims and Sindhis and so on, are playing their part in Barbados in different ways. But they also playing their part in other parts of the world, especially in North America and so on. So I think that overall, the Barbadian East Indian community are playing their part as a citizen of Barbados to the best of ability. We also know that we are Barbadians. We are Muslims. Some of us call us Bajan Muslims, call us, but they know who we are. We have achieved that main goal that Suleiman and I have set, is that we wanted each and every household in Barbados to have an Islamic literature, to know what Islam is. And so I think that we have achieved that goal to a greater degree. We have our children are now intermarrying, they are lawyers and doctors and we have Huffaz and we have Alims and Alimas, and the whole environment, Islamic environment and otherwise too. It is very, very good. So yes, in Barbados, we are doing our best, to play our part as good citizens and as good Muslims too. And throughout the world, come and visit us in Barbados, and you will see how beautiful we are, how beautiful our beaches are, and how nice our food is. Flying fish and cuckoo and samosas and dal and rice and whatever.
Beautiful. And once you hit Barbados, you have to check out oysters.
Yes, George fish is very important.
George fish. So, years ago, I came to Barbados and I took some of the youths to Grenada. And now Barbados has continued to export its scholars and its hufaz and to many of the islands. Of course, you have exported your Prime Minister, Mia Mottley, when she was the head for the CARICOM, to help quell the indecisions that were happening in the democratic elections in Guyana. So I am therefore happy that you have actually extended yourself to the rest of the Caribbean and who have gathered information about the history, the presence, the contribution, the personalities of some of the Muslim giants in the Caribbean. What comes to mind is like, for example, is Dawul Haq, right? Dawul Haq that is Bajan and went on to make great contributions in the Bahamas and the States. So tell us a bit about your book, CARICOM Muslims, that you have just recently published and that now can be purchased on Amazon.com, just like Bengal to Barbados can be purchased at Amazon.com.
Both of them are available in Kindle version at this point in time. After reading so much about the slave and slave trade and so on, and after learning that, hey, Africa has a 2/3 of Africa are Muslims, I started to learn more about the Muslims of Africa, whether among the slaves, if there were any Muslims. Nothing could be found. And so I started my journey to learn more. I want to know, just like the Bengal to Barbados, I want to know there must be something there. It just has to be found. And so who can be better than myself to do it? Just like Bengal to Barbados, who can be better than myself to do it? And so you have to have a dream, you have to have a object in mind, you have to have a focus, you have to have that determination. And so I started, and of course, as you know, that Islam went to Africa in the early 7th century. The Muslims went there as refugees. And so that is how Islam started in Africa in the 7th century. And so when I started to read, I realized that, over 200 years before Columbus ever thought about getting lost to the Americas, you had Mansa Musa Abu Bakr, he set sail with about 2,000 ships in 1312. And so those are the kind of research I started to do. Again, I went to each and every one of the CARICOM islands, some more than once. I did a lot of oral research, but I also did some academic research, reading many, many, many books. And as you know, being a Muslim, I was fortunate to read a lot of books from the Muslim scholars about Islam coming to Nigeria in the 13th century and things like that. The journey of Mansa Musa when he went to pilgrimage to Mecca and changed the whole economy of Egypt and things like that. I went to Haiti. And when I went to Haiti, I went there in 2010. Of course, you had to have a guard with you because it's a dangerous place to go. When I went there, they said, brother, about the French aspect of the freedom of Haiti, over there and so on, but let's give you the Islamic side. And so they started to tell me about the Macandal and started to tell me about Bookman and so on. And Macandal and so on. And, so everywhere I went, I spoke to Muslims, non-Muslims, historians and so on. And then even in Barbados, we did not know that there were slaves who were Muslims in Barbados. And I think that at this point in time, and I put it in my book, Muslims of CARICOM, that it is possible that one of the national heroes of Barbados, the one who started the revolution in 1816 in Barbados, called Bassa or Busso, could have been a Muslim.
Right.
Because through my research, he was a Mande, and he came from northern Nigeria, a town called Oyo, and they were Mande Muslim presence at that time. And so those were the kind of research I did. There were so many Muslims living in Trinidad. They had a community, they had schools, and they were freeing slaves, and so there's, it's such exciting history of these slaves. They were not half-naked beasts. They were scholars, they were nobles, so those are the kind of thing that you would read in the Muslims of CARICOM. And Muslims in CARICOM has also been very, very nice to me, very kind to me. All I had to do is to end up in St. Lucia, know one Muslim, and then I am covered. Although I may have to go and sleep in the masjid, put 2 musallas, and but that is how it is. Walk with my eclipse biscuit and drink juice, or drink whatever it is. But you have to make sacrifices as long as you are focused, and you know what is your purpose, and you need to have this thing done. And then you have to focus, make sacrifices, and leave it in the hands of Allah. And I must say, Allah has been so merciful to me. He has been so kind to me. He found my ways. He found ways for me from which I never even knew. People would come to me and I said, wow, So you see, once you have a good intention, sincerity, you have action, your intention is good, your intention is sincere, Allah will make things easy for you. And I think that is what happened to me. And Muslim brothers and
I
sisters
want
throughout
to
the
say
Caribbean.
congratulations and thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of the hundreds of thousands of Muslims of the Caribbean that you have, for making such an amazing contribution that marks our history and celebrate our successes. And everyone should have a copy of that book. This brings us a close to the interview. And ladies and gentlemen, we have stretched it a bit tonight. We did have Preacher Marks on the program earlier, and we missed Lennox Schumann, but we were happy to have our headliner, Sabir Nakhuda from Barbados, sharing his journey from Gujarat to England to Barbados, talking about his discovery of Bashar Ali's family in Bengal, and of course his rendezvous trips and adventures in the Caribbean to bring to us his second book, CARICOM Muslims. We have with us, very fortunate to have Suleiman Bulbulia, who is Sabir Nakhuda's manager, but he's
Yes.
also a good friend. And I don't want to close the program without having the honor to give in Suleiman the parting words tonight. Suleiman, you're free to share with us your thoughts about tonight's program, something about the Barbados Muslims, or if you just want to tell us your feelings about the American elections, that too.
Excuse me 1 minute, dude. I have a third book that is coming called the Abrahamic Prophets. That is also to build bridges among the followers of the Abrahamic faith.
Oh, lovely. I'm glad. I hope I could be a contributor to that book.
Inshallah.
Good, Suleiman.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Maulana Habeeb, thank you so much for the opportunity. And it's good seeing you after so long.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't see in person, but we will see on the internet.
Yes.
And it's always great to hear Sabir's stories and his accounts of what he did. It's just fascinating. And I don't think he told you that I pushed him until he got to the point of making sure that the book was finished.
Right.
It was too long in the
over
making.
the edge, to so to speak.
Yeah, too long in the making. So alhamdulillah, he got that done, and then in short course, he got the other one done, and he wants to do another one now. So he has the bug in him to finish books now. So alhamdulillah. So yeah,
well,
that's wonderful.
At one time, I did invite him to join us on the Pakarima Writers Association dinner when he was in Canada. And again, I'm now the current president, so I'm giving you an open invitation, Sabir. When things are good and you come back to Canada, we will host you.
Thank you.
Excellent. The books have gone a long way in providing information that has not been there, and it has prompted people to ask more questions to find out more information. So I think he has done very well, alhamdulillah, and I think as we go forward, we will make them more readily available to many different places. The Bengal to Barbados went into the schools. Muslims of CARICOM, hopefully we will do the same with that and try to spread it as far as possible so that the information is out there. People can use it as a resource material as well. So alhamdulillah. And we are here under lockdown, so not as bad as you guys in Canada or other parts or in North America, but we are, alhamdulillah, still good for our country, and Muslims are observing some of the rules and some they're still struggling with in the masjids and so on. But yeah, we've been watching what's going on in North America. I was just looking at the latest poll results. So we're hoping that some good will come out of everything that's happening there, inshallah. But thank you for the opportunity, and we are really happy to be here with you, and hopefully we can say more about what we're doing on the island. The discussions that we do have with a number of institutions and people of other faiths does play a big role. Last year we had the Abrahamic Faith Conference in Barbados, where Judaism, Christianity, and Islam came together. And it was a wonderful exercise in bringing that to Barbados. And what we did was we started off at the masjid in Sobers Lane, where everyone gathered. And we had over 300 school students gathered there, along with the minister and the press and other people interested. And they got, for the first time, many of them would enter into a masjid or mosque and listen to the azan and listen to Sabir speaking about the history. And then we walked from there. We walked from that masjid and we went to the synagogue. And at the synagogue, similarly, we were welcome, and everyone went to, so many of them, first time in the synagogue. Was the first time for me. It's the oldest synagogue in the Western Hemisphere, by the way.
Yes.
It's right there in the heart of Bridgetown,
Yeah.
walking distance from the masjid. And then from there, we walked to the cathedral, where we were welcomed by the Christian community. And then from there, we walked to the park, where the Rastafarian community met us, and it was there. So it was a wonderful exercise of the Abrahamic faith getting together. And then we had a conference afterwards with Sheikh Saad and Archbishop from Nigeria and a Jewish rabbi from England. So it was a wonderful exercise, and I think that is something that needs to be repeated in other parts of the world. So yeah, we're doing a number of things here in Barbados, and we're hoping that Allah will bless us for what we do. So Jazakallah khair. Thank you, Mahana Habeeb, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Congratulations again. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us close to tonight's Your Story, A Mercy to Humanity. Namaste, Shalom, Shanti, and peace with each and every one of you. Assalamu alaikum. And Sabir, you have the last word.
The last word is that trust in Allah. This is difficult time. Have patience, and Allah will make things easy. Once again, thanks to you, and thanks to everyone who is listening and watching us.
And thanks to the Muslim Food Bank for hosting us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you, Sabir. Thank you, everyone. Good night and be safe.